welcome to the Find Your Next Guitar podcast, where we help you find the right gear. I am Dave, your host, and today we have an awesome interview lined up with Drew Conte from the band I Call Fives. Drew, it's great to have you on the show today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and I Call Fives?
Well, thank you for having me. About me, I am a 26-year-old male. I play the bass for I Call Fives, who plays, I guess, on the more infrequent side now. It's really weird. We don't really, defining like being broken up or something like that isn't really a thing. We've had several lineups over the years, and we're not an active band any longer, but we still have luckily been able to play sporadically over the past 2 years since we have been active. So we actually, this time last year, we were in Australia, and just a couple months ago, we played with our original lineup, actually with a different singer, interestingly enough, at the Chile in Philadelphia. So we kind of like to define it as we're not breaking up, and it's not like dead. So as long as we're musically capable, every once in a while, we still, the door is open for us to play music as I Call Fives. So that's kind of our situation right now. And otherwise about me, I'm actually I'm working a regular sucker job as many of my touring and musician peers may put it. But I'm just kind of enjoying not taking music on a full-time sense right now so much, and kind of letting things come as they are, and just enjoying some downtime right now. It's strange when you don't. For years, it was about 5 straight years of touring. So it was just, especially because it was when I was 18 we started. So those are key 5 years kind of in your life, and it was a weird initial transition because what I was most familiar with was touring and sleeping in a van in a Walmart parking lot and all that stuff. So it's been a weird transition, but it's been nice to not know terrible about the money on my credit card and to know where I'm sleeping tonight and things like that. So it's been different, but ultimately the cool part is, like I said, some bands hate each other, they break up and that's it forever, stuff like that. But we're in a position where the door's kind of always open, like I said, so it's nice. Or maybe it's just a terrible way of holding on and clinging on to the past, and we'll never do anything again. I'm kidding. But no, it's been fun recently, and especially, like I said, last year in Australia I never thought we'd be able to do something like that. Strangely enough, it's arguably the biggest thing we'd ever done, and it was when we weren't actively touring. So the things like that happen, and it's been an interesting ride and a fun one.
So what inspired you to first learn an instrument?
I think it might be similar to a lot of people my age that were thinking about starting, but it was Blink-182. I've been a huge fan of them since I was like 10, and I like the style, I like the Tony Hawk games, and in particular, like I got my first bass in the year 2000. Actually, I was in the 8th grade, and maybe the 7th grade. But at that time, there was so much more, I guess, in the mainstream media. Pardon me. But like, for example, just like there's MTV2. There was still sound when like rock bands might be on it. There's a lot more stuff with like, say, the American Pie soundtracks, or again like video games, like I mentioned. So rock and roll and bands and pop songs and stuff like that was a lot more, I guess you could say, accessible in the mainstream media, and that kind of always showed me like a different sort of thing. And then I got into Blink-182, which then allowed me into different genres beyond that, whether it's hardcore, ska, or whatever it was. So that was kind of the initial thing for me, though, was Blink, and it opened up a huge chapter in my life.
So how many years have you been playing the bass guitar now?
So that puts me at 15 years of regularity on the bass guitar, and it's strange how quickly it goes. But I remember the initial, getting my first, it was the Squire Pack, which is like the Fender Squire bass, and like the little crappy combo amp, and I remember just like playing along to the Atari's album and Blink albums and Taking Back Sunday when their first album came out, and that was kind of the stuff that initially was just went from playing along with stuff, and I ended up, quote, I guess I could say teaching myself, although it wasn't exactly rocket science, some of those songs, but that was the stuff that really just opened it up for me. And I was then lucky enough to meet Ben and send him some more interest in music, and later in life we then started a band.
Would it be fair to say that the genre that you play the most is probably pop punk?
Yeah, that I mostly play, would you say?
Yeah, the style of music.
Yeah, that's the style that I've been most familiar with. I'm a huge Paul and Oates fan, don't get me wrong, and I like some other stuff, but yeah, that was the stuff that basically that's what I really got into, and in 2006 when it started, with bands like Blank and Eastbound and Soldering and whoever else, it was, we were trying to make something very similar to that, and we were big fans of that, and that was sort of the thing for us at the time.
So, from playing bass for 15 years now, what do you think makes a great bass guitar?
Well, I think it's sort of like everything, like maybe a professional video gamer has a certain mouse that he prefers, or a singer like myself. It's really about what you're comfortable with. And I've always played Fender products. Basically, I've just always liked the way that the neck feels. So for me, the action and the playability, I guess, and the comfort zone with the neck has always been my thing. So I play a Fender American P bass that I've had since 2008, and it has a maple neck. And prior to that, bass that I had for about 2 years had a maple neck. So I've just always really liked Fender basses with maple necks. They're smooth and they're comfortable, and it's just a total preference thing for me. And then there's people that might play like a huge Gibson Grabber, which the neck is like a hunk of wood and it weighs 20 pounds, but they're comfortable with it. So it's really based on what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I completely
But I guess also tied to 182, my initial interest with a Fender P bass came from Mark Hoppus, and those are the basses that I first played were Fenders because of that, and I actually had a Mark Hoppus bass. And then as I played more, I happened to find that I like the different neck better, and it's just it's what you find comfortable and a personal preference thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If you're not comfortable with what you're playing, you're never going to be happy with it, and you're just never going to get to the next level as a player if it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. An interesting thing actually too is I'm a left-handed person, but the bass is the only thing I don't play left-handed, and the reason being is, I've always wondered if maybe I would have been better playing left-handed. But when I got my first bass, they didn't have any left-handed basses at Guitar Center. And the fella said, he's like, well, so do you play any instruments right now? I said, no, I've never really played a bass in my entire life. He's like, well, why isn't that what Andy play with? And it made perfect sense to me. And it really does make sense, because if you're not familiar with it, you don't have that preference yet.
Right.
It kind of became then just, I couldn't fathom picking up a left-handed bass to play right now. It would make no sense. So that's how I actually then ended up playing right-handed, which also, not to bring off topic, but it worked out for the best, because if you ever broke a string or if something happened, actually when we went to England one time, my bass was lost in the van, lost in transit somehow. So I didn't get my bass for about a week. But had I been playing left-handed, there's very rarely a left-handed bass player that you'd be able to borrow something from. So the right-handed bass definitely paid off for me in the end.
I didn't think about it until you just said that, but it would be a problem if you couldn't play right-handed. You might not be able to find a left-handed bass.
Yeah, even if you just broke a string in mid-set, if you don't have a backup bass on it, stuff like that, which definitely happened to me one time, luckily. But it's one of those things I never, that train of thought, I remember, I still look back and I'm like, wow, that's a good point. Well, if you don't know how to play it, why does it matter what hand you learn how to play it with? Yeah. And that's the long story of why I play right-handed.
Yeah, well, for someone that's just learning how to play either bass or guitar, do you have any advice that you'd want to give them other than pick up one that's right-handed?
Other than that, and again, not using a ton of cliches similar to preference of my bass compared to what game it is and that. It's really just like anyone might get good at anything. It's repetition, it's practicing, it's playing, having that interest. And again, not to be very cliche, but it's like anything in life that comes easy is probably not going to be that real. It's probably not going to be that sustainable or true. And it's like, you really just got to play. And if you play and you enjoy it and you continue to grow and you play with other people and they enjoy it and you listen to different types of music and you step outside of that space. So for me, I've heard pop punk records for 15 years. So within that realm of music, I think it's kind of fair to say that style, it's sort of, if I were to stay only listening to that one thing for my entire life, your growth is then kind of stunted. So then if what I always tell drummers that I've been friends with over the years is, why don't you listen to this jazz record? Or listen to this other kind of, when you step outside of that box of your known zone, and you make yourself into, you bring yourself into something a little less comfortable, it allows you the chance to learn new things, different styles, techniques, and you'll pick up other stuff along the way that you can kind of then, mesh into what is your style. So I guess I would say that I think the biggest thing, and it's really applicable to anything in life, but especially with music, is people get very one-track minded, and that really can stunt your growth as a musician or an artist or as a person or anything. You kind of take some things. So say I listen to Blink 182 and the Atari all day, every day. Those are going to be the two main things that I use as references when I'm writing. But kind of as you go on, if you listen to, say, then you listen to the new Jay-Z album, I don't know, you listen to Frank Sinatra, you're then taking more things for, you're expanding your palette. And I think that's the biggest thing that sometimes people don't realize is if you step outside of what you know and you kind of go to that unknown zone, it allows you to mesh all these different styles and sounds together, and it gives you an expanded palette for different understanding and approach. And I think that's the biggest. So really practice and repetition. And those are obviously the bases and rules for anything that you see in. But however, it's just not to be closed-minded when it comes to music styles or different walks of life or whatever it may be. And those things can help you grow in a different perspective can really help improve you.
Yeah, so to really grow as a musician, you need to step out of your comfort zone a little bit then.
Absolutely.
And then the last question that I wanted to ask was, for anyone that's looking to start a band, obviously you have a lot of experience with touring and recording. What advice would you want to give to them?
I guess it's another similar, in the sense of it's repetitious that you got to just play, you work hard. When we first started out in 2006, we would practice for about 5 hours a day, 5 times a week. And the thing with it, honestly, though, is we didn't look at it as, we got to do this, we have to do this thing, or as we progressed in our tenure, I guess it became sort of, there was timelines and timetables and deadlines, and this album has to do this. I mean, we should have this kind of song. And those are the things that you kind of don't want that can be toxic. So, big in gaining success in that realm, it's number one, having any sort of time frame, I think, can really sort of bring a toxic environment to it, and it really then starts to maybe take away from what it should be. And that's just be ultimately something you really like to do, something you want to do, not because of maybe what some label thinks or because of whatever show. I mean, we were really lucky to do a lot of things, and with that, I was never able to say, pay rent based on the band. I was at home with my parents the entire time. Had it not been for them, I probably couldn't have toured as long as I had. So with it, your expectations and reality need to be very much aligned. And we were in Australia our first time, and we played for like 10 people on show. And, for a lot of people I know, they might be like, well, man, you guys, you paid for half the flight yourself. And just to play that, you're going to end up ultimately losing money to play to nobody in Australia. And it's like, well, who knows if we were ever going to be here in the first place. And we were happy to be with our friends and with each other, seeing the world, stuff like that. So for us, luckily our expectations were aligned. But for some, I think they kind of lose touch with that reality, and they maybe expect too much, and they look at things too much of a business sense. There's a band that I know who's an excellent band, and the big business, they started with a business plan. It's like, I totally understand that, but if your business plan then for your band doesn't start to pan out, or maybe let's just say if you don't have that spark, that initial one, well, then everyone's expectations are going to be very, very inflated, and that business is going to fail. So I think really it's timelines and expectations. They're not really good. We didn't ever expect anything, and we played all the time because we thought, well, I think we'll get better, number one, and we just wanted to hang out and play. And we were able to, luckily, that was the foundation for us then touring for however many years and playing in Australia and England and touring the U.S. probably 20 times. So it's really just doing it because it's what you enjoy to do and it's something you like. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing if you'll ever make money or not knowing if anyone will ever really care. Because as long as you ultimately care, that's what it's all about. And that's sort of the thing. You can't really fail if you don't quit. And that's just sort of the mantra that we always kind of live by. And I don't know. I really think my stressor is that people end up just with expectations that they're not necessarily going to happen. And I guess my main focus would be when people always ask me about then on the financial end, or why did you guys stop, man? Like, well, honestly, and again, this isn't boo-hoo for me because we had a great time regardless, and I don't regret anything. But on the financial end, we never profited. No, but I kind of then people that I know will be like, you guys do Warped Tour or whatever it may be, like streaming that financially that related it to something more. But I kind of always compared it to. There's a lot of guys that play in the NBA, but not everybody makes the All-Star. Right. And so ultimately, my expectations, though, I never thought that I was going to be in that top 1% that was going to make a financial living off of music. So the fact that we were even in the conversation of a band that someone in Russia or somebody in Japan or somebody in New Mexico right now might be listening to, that beyond exceeds my expectations. So the lack of maybe financial reward, in the end, that doesn't really have much of an effect or a bother to me. And I guess that maybe reverts back to why the door is always open for us. And we don't, hate each other and we'll never play another show or something like that. I think it's just, you got to know what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and being realistic about it. That's the most important thing to me. And also, very long story short, when people play, especially at smaller shows, fans tend to not watch bands, especially bands on tour. So I remember we would tour all the time and play very small shows. And bands often in that position wouldn't watch the other bands on that small show. So I think it's always important that you're at the show. I understand you can be tired. There's some nights, of course, you're just in there now, whatever. And you should always support the bands playing, whether there be 10 people or 100. Just meeting those people in that town. This band, let's say they brought out 30 people, and that's why there's 30 people there tonight. Well, meet that band. Let them know that it's appreciated they did that. And they were helping bring any sort of crowd to your show. So the networking, if we use that word all the time. And I guess I don't mean network so much as I mean just be fucking courteous. Pardon my language. It's just you're playing with these guys, and their band is supporting the show with you. So you certainly owe that as out of respect to watch them, or at least be somewhat present. And it's always kind of foreign to me when people are like, "Oh man, I'm just gonna sit in the back, the van, whatever." We were all in that position, and the fact that they're willing and interested in supporting you to any extent on the show, it's beyond rude to not reciprocate that respect.
Drew, it's been awesome to have you on the show. I really appreciate you coming in, and I think the advice you gave is going to be really valuable to a lot of people.
I hope so. I don't ruin anybody's life.
Well, I don't think that'll be the case. I mean, I think one of the main reasons that a lot of bands don't get to where they need to be is because, like you said, they just don't have realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of this stuff I believe it applies to life. Any facet of life. It's like, you can be a barber that's trying really hard, but if you think that you're going to be the next, biggest barber overnight, it's just not realistic. And when you throw 4 other people into the mix and you get a same page, well, good luck, because that's very, very difficult. And it's just being realistic and understanding nothing worth having comes easy, and that good things take work and they take time. And if you really want it, then ultimately you'll stick with it. And if you don't quit, then you can't fail. I'm a firm believer that if you really want something and you work hard enough at it, you'll be rewarded. It might take a long time, and you might lose a lot of stuff in the process, but if you don't quit, you can't fail.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a motivational speaker right now.
You sound like one.
High school or something.
Well, I think that's a good part to end, unless you have anything else you want to say.
No, that's about it. And I appreciate you having me, and it's cool to be able to share some of that stuff for anybody that's interested.